Hello, very warm welcome to Weekly Current Affairs. My name is Madhusudan Reddy and let's begin with this session. In this session, as you all know, we will be taking up current affairs which have been figured out in the last 1 week, and today we will be taking up articles like Arctic Bill abhi recently jo pass hua tha, and there are some issues with respect to Aravalis, and we will try to link up with the current affairs and also some link up with the static topic, and what is relevant to our examination we are going to take up in this session. Right, and our first article for today is a Hindu newspaper published article which has been talking about recalling India's Antarctica activities. Right, so from this article what we have to look forward is its location, where exactly is the Antarctica, and the significance of Antarctica for India, as well as the difference between ice shelves and ice caps. And there are some stations which have been stationed in the Antarctica, the names of the station and the significance of those stations, and mineral point of view, say how Antarctica is important and who owns Antarctica and what is the meaning of condemonium and why India is in Antarctica, as well as the operations that we do in Antarctica. So more or less it's a holistic article which we are going to cover in 360-degree dimensions. Right, so firstly let us try to address the question of who owns Antarctica. Who owns Antarctica? If you know the answer, you can also comment in the comment section as well. Right, firstly we have to ask ourselves who owns the Antarctica. Antarctica is an area which is considered to be a large ice cap, right, large ice caps. Now in this ice cap, no country owns this Antarctica. Only all the countries have some stakes in Antarctica, but they do not own it. Now what is this kind of conditions called? It is called as condemonium. Condemonium means where few countries, they come together, make some rules and regulations, and they live with the harmonium. Now this is called condemonium, right? And when it comes to the locational aspects, your Antarctica is located at the southern pole. I hope many of you are aware of this, right? And on the north pole we have Arctic, right? And this is, now what is the difference between Arctic and Antarctic in terms of its size, in terms of its various composition as well? See, firstly we call Antarctica as a continent, right? Now why is Antarctica called a continent? You have to be aware of. See, there is a difference between ice shelf and ice sheet. Why you have to know this difference? Because these are the words which have also been used in the Treaty of Antarctica. Okay? In the Treaty of Antarctica, the words of ice shelf and ice sheet have been used. So in this context you should be very much aware between the difference between ice sheet and ice shelf. See, an ice sheet is nothing but upon a bedrock. Suppose you have a rock, upon this bedrock, if at all there is a layer of sheet on that continent, it is called ice sheet. But if this extensions of the glaciers or extensions of this ice sheet goes into the ocean, then it is called as ice shelf. Now when the ice shelf breaks and if it floats in the water, it is called an iceberg, right? Now when you look into Antarctica, Antarctica is one of the plateau. See, a plateau is nothing but an elevated area, right? Now this can be your mountain, now this is a plateau and these are your plains, right? This is your plateau, this is your mountain. Now your Antarctica is a plateau. Upon this plateau there is a layer of ice, right? There is a layer of ice and this is called as ice sheet, right? So these kind of conditions you won't get to see in the Arctic. Okay? Arctic is not a plateau, but Antarctica is a plateau. Upon the plateau you have ice sheets, and these ice sheets are extending into the oceans next to the plateau. Because of this you will have ice shelves. That means your research can be done on the ice shelves, your research can be done on the ice sheets, and protection of this ice sheets and ice shelves is very, very important, right? Now this is what you have to be aware about the locational aspects. Now when it comes to the concept of glaciers, there are many more glaciers that are present on the Antarctica. Now as Antarctica is an ice shelf, the sea level, as you see, the sea level, it is on an average an extensions of up to 4,000 meters. 4,000 meters की height पर ये अंटार्कटिका हो सकती है. And also the extensions, if you see, this is the size of Greenland and this is the size of Antarctica, right? Size of Greenland is just a smaller entity. Now Antarctica size देखो काफी बड़ा है, and that's why it is considered to be as a continent, and the difference between the glacial ice as well as ice sheet and ice shelf has been defined here, right? Now when we have to look forward into the Antarctica, firstly we have to know a treaty called Antarctica Treaty. It was signed way back in the year 1959, when in the year India also wanted to be part of this treaty, but India did not get the opportunity, because just after independence we started to build our country. In this building process we felt that India also wanted to be part of these kind of expeditions, but we haven't been invited nor we have been informed about this, right? So with the advancement of the Nehru Menon initiative, slowly we started to get in contact with other countries, and later in the year 1982 India also became part of this treaty. So in this Antarctica Treaty there are 12 countries which are listed here, starting from Argentina se lekar USSR tak. These 12 countries were the initial countries which have signed a treaty called the Treaty of Antarctica. Now in this Treaty of Antarctica there are some conventions that have come into picture, there are some protocols, there are also some environmental laws that have been came into the Antarctica region. Now no country which is listed here do not have the rights, the ownership rights, but every country has certain rules and regulations. If at all there need to be some changes that need to be taken place in this treaty, it is these countries who plays a major role, right? And India was not part initially. And you should also know about the background as well, the background of the Antarctic Treaty and with respect to the journey of India. See, back in 1956 and 59, Nehru and Menon, they wanted to be part of, India wanted to be part of this treaty, but we haven't been invited. And just after a decade or so, India has been called for looking into the aspects of research stations here. So finally in the year 1982, we started to go into the expeditions, but still we haven't been given the membership. Now in that year, it was then the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, with her will, slowly we acquired ships from Norway and ships from Russia. With the advancement of the technology, then we borrowed their ships, and in that ships we went into Antarctica and we started exploring those areas. Now why do we have to go to Antarctica and do research? What is the use of doing research in Antarctica for India? See, if you look into India, most of the major landforms of India in the Himalayan region, if you look in the Himalayan region, these Himalayan regions have similar kind of climate that you get to see in the Antarctica region as well. So if you have to understand the Himalayas, the changing glacier entities, it is very important for us to understand the concept of glaciers as well. So in this context, India wanted to do its own research and be part of that global entity where no one owns the territory. So India, in studying its glaciers, there are series of glaciers here, right? We wanted to understand this phenomena. Apart from this, if you look into, there is a big ocean that has been named after India, right? There is a big ocean which has been named after India, and that is your Indian Ocean. Now major part of the Indian Ocean will be impacted by the Antarctica's weather every year. So it is also very much important to understand the phenomena that have been taking place in the Antarctica as well. So in this context, if you see, if this is our India and here you have Antarctica, the monsoons that come onto India are mostly from the southern hemisphere. It is these monsoon winds, they come onto India in the name of southwest. They come to India from the southwest direction, but most of the moisture is taken in the Indian Ocean, in the southern part of the Indian Ocean, right? So if at all there are any changes that you get to see here, these things will also impact the global atmospheric circulation, right? Global atmospheric circulation, it's a phenomena. Now since last few decades or so, or the melting of glaciers that have been taking place from the North Pole and from the South Pole has also been evident. On July 29th, this year, on July 29th, this year, hardly 10-15 days before, the rotational speed of the Earth has also been reduced by 2 milliseconds, right? So the rotational speed of the Earth has been reduced by 2 milliseconds because of this 2 millisecond time period. This time period could bring in lot more impacts onto the Earth as well. You might be questioning, how can this impact just a matter of 2 milliseconds? See, 2 milliseconds, all the satellites that are going around the Earth, they have been set time, they have a set time. Slowly, this kind of 2 millisecond activity, if it happens to be seen in the near future, it is very difficult for these satellites to get in tandem with them. And the stock markets across the world, on a second basis, there will be so much of transactions. That means across the globe, at one or the other point of time, one or the other market is active. That means at the end, there are highly likely the chances that one or the other market might lose that millisecond time period. So even the Earth should also adjust to that pendulum clocks or rubidium clocks of 23 hours, 59 minutes and 59 milliseconds, right? So it is very much important to understand the phenomena that takes place at the poles. So India is one of the most populated country, and India also feels that it is the right of India, where the rights are not owned by any countries, so India also has certain rights. Now in this context, with the advancement of technologies over a period of time, even we started to explore the regions of Antarctica. And for India, it is important because one, we can understand the Indian monsoon system in a better way, and we can understand the glacial patterns and glacial movements and the glacial studies which are based in the Himalayan region, right? Nextly, let us quickly look into what exactly is the treaty that was signed and what India has agreed upon. And in last week itself, a bill has been enacted into an act in the parliament. So we'll once understand the Treaty of Antarctica, and also we'll go into the amendment bill, that Antarctica Bill, which has came up in the last week, right? Firstly, the Antarctica Treaty has certain important points. It says that this part of the territory is not owned by anyone. There is a principle of condemonium, right? Now everyone should have a freedom of scientific research. Now the freedom of scientific research, and it should be an open research. Everyone should know what kind of research are you doing in. Now all the member countries, after 1982, when India went and stationed here in the name of Dakshin Gangotri, India went and stationed in the name of Dakshina Gangotri. Dakshina Gangotri. This is the name of a station, and in this station we have started to stay there within a span of 11 months. Within 11 months, India has done 2 expeditions. Usually Antarctica is in the southern hemisphere, right? In the southern hemisphere, during the times of January and February, it will be summers. So in summer times, the temperatures are not very extreme as compared to the winter times, and that is the time when research can be conducted very easily. For with the will and the advancement, and then India went to stay during the time of March, April, May and June to do its second research and get the evidences, right? So with the efforts of India, India has also been finally added into the treaty in the year 1983. Now 2 years later, China also followed. China also followed into the understanding of the understanding of the Antarctica, right? Now here first let us look into the points that have to be looked forward for the examination. Number 1, the Antarctica Treaty says that there should not be any military use, right? They clearly say that in the Antarctica you cannot station your military, and you cannot use that military for war purpose or any other purpose. But they have agreed upon the identity that these militaries can stay in that region and can take part in the research activities, right? But they cannot be using their weapons, and they cannot be using it for the war kind of purposes, right? Now the second entity which has been clearly discussed in the Antarctic Treaty is the freedom of scientific investigation. Now the freedom of scientific investigation talks about International Geophysical Year, which is being promoted for the cooperation between all the member countries which are placed in the Antarctica. Now if at all you wanted to do research on how glaciers are melting, you have to inform that I am doing research to the melting of the glaciers to every member country who is present. Now you cannot say that I am not going to disclose what research am I going to do. Now this treaty says that you are free to do whatever the research you wanted to do, but at the same time you should also inform what kind of research are you going to do, right? Now you have the freedom of in terms of doing research on your own. Next, free exchange of scientific plans and data. Now this free exchange of scientific plans and data talks about if at all Russia is doing a research and it has some data, now it can share its data with India. India is doing some research and it can share its data with Russia, and on a collaborative basis you can also do another research, right? In the recent times there has been an article that microplastics have even reached Antarctica when the fresh snow has been started, right? That means this is one of a kind of a research where they also find out there are some small microorganisms which can eat that microplastics. So these kind of researches, it is very much important. So if you have to understand the innovations that have come out from the Antarctica research are nothing but your biotoilets. See, biotoilets are generally a phenomena where wherever the possibility of toilets are not there, you can use the biotoilets, right? Earlier when people used to go into the space, excreta or the fecus elements of which are present in the space, it is very difficult to degrade, right? Either what they used to do, they used to bring it back or they used to decompose in the space itself, right? So in extreme entities, extreme researches will come out. On a similar way, people who are working in the Siachen, our soldiers, when they were working there, any fecus element that has to be passed out, do you think that fecus element will be degraded or the vegetable waste will be degraded in that cold temperature? It can't be degraded. Similar way, the researchers, that people who are working here, for them the waste management is a very difficult task. That for this waste management they have come up with many different kinds of technologies today the world is using. So it is very important to understand the research that they have been using, and exchange of data, learning from each other and cooperative manner is something which we have to look forward. And when it comes to the nuclear treaty with respect to Antarctica, Antarctica should be a free area from nuclear testing, right? Antarctica should be a free area from nuclear testing. This is what is being said by the treaty. Next, the treaty also applies to ice shelves. I have told that the difference between ice shelves and ice sheet, right? Ice shelves and ice sheet. Ice shelves are nothing but extensions of the ice sheets. So if you see, I already told you that Antarctica जो है एक plateau है. Plateau के ऊपर, on the plateau you have these kind of ice. Now if this ice is extended into the water, then it is considered to be ice shelf. Now your treaty can also extend up to the ice shelves as well. That means you can do your research even on the ice shelves, right? Ice shelves are nothing but these are the areas. That means it is floating on the water. This do not have any rock particles. If this breaks, it is an iceberg, ice caps, right? So can you station your research center on an iceberg? The answer is no. You can station your stations and do research on the ice shelves and ice sheets, right? So India also has one of its station which is named as Gangotri. This is Dakshina Gangotri, which is placed in Antarctica, right? And in Arctic also we have a research station. Can you name it? Can you name the research station which is present in the Arctic? It is Himadri. Himadri is the research station which has placed in the Arctic. That means we have two research centers, one which is placed in the North Pole, it is Himadri, and in the South Pole it is Maitri and Gangotri. This is Dakshina Gangotri, right? Maitri and Dakshina Gangotri. And we also established a new station in the year 2012 with the name of Bharati. With the name of Bharati, right? Now what exactly is this research station? This research station is nothing but a temporary setup that has been set up where our scientists will go and do their research there. Now that is something of a big thing for India, to get a territory there, and on that territory we are doing our research, right? Come back. Now coming to inspections, if at all while you are doing the research, you can also conspire to do something else, right? So you can also conspire to do something else. In order to protect those kind of conspirations, an inspection committee will be set up, and this committee, among the member countries who are taking research in there, among them a committee will be set up, and a committee can visit any point of time into your research station and do some kind of inspections. And jurisdiction, imagine you have done some kind of crime there. Now who will be punishing you? Is it the Treaty of Antarctica will be punishing you, or you'll come back to India and then you will be punished? The answer is that you will be coming back to India. Once you come back to India, then you will be punished, right? That is your jurisdiction. Next, when it comes to the changing of the rules with respect to the treaty, who can change? Member nations. The member nations will change. This treaty is only applicable up to 1948. Now post 1948, what is the plight of this treaty? That means all the member countries which are present here, will they be dismantling themselves into non-member nations? The answer is no. They'll be coming up with more number of treaties and more organizations based on the consensus, right? And lastly, it is your environmental impact assessment. Suppose you have your research station here like this. Every year an environmental impact assessment will be taken. That means how much footprints you have left behind in the Antarctica. So these kind of footprints you have to pay back to the Antarctica Council as well. In this council you will be asked to pay or repair this kind of damage or the footprints which you have left behind, right? For this, environmental impact assessment is very much important, right? And there are also other entities, that prevention of pollution bhi hona chahiye, prevention of marine pollution when the movement of ships. There are these kind of treaties that have been signed, and the image which you see here behind is the image of our Dakshina Gangotri station. This is your Dakshina Gangotri station. Now today it is very sad to know that this station is just a station of supplies. For us to take some kind of research in these areas, we need to have ships of these kinds. India currently do not have the capability to make these kind of ships. Today we are procuring aircrafts from the foreign. Similarly, we are also procuring the defense equipments and other research station ships also from foreign. We are procuring it from Norway and Russia. But look at China. China has two of its own ships where the ships should have the capability to break the ice. So make in India is something which is also very much important, to make these kind of ships in India, and where we can use these ships in the India's own expeditions. Now when we don't have these kind of ships, we are always dependent upon the foreign nations. Our research is based upon foreign nations. We borrow these ships, or we will be part of other country ships, and we will be taking up our research there, right? So it is very much important to bring in the Make in India component, right? And I have already told you that we have two research stations which are currently active, that is Maitri and Bharati. And in the current context, the Parliament has passed a bill, right? Now when they have passed the bill has given effect to three entities. Okay, what are these three entities? One is your Antarctic Treaty, जो भी हमने अभी तक discuss किया था, those things have now been legalized in India. And it is also said that the bill is Antarctica Bill. The Antarctica Bill is now an act which says that we are going to apply the rules and regulations in the foreign territory of Antarctica within the Maitri station and Bharati station. And if at all any Indian wants to take research there, they need to take the permission of the government. This is what mentioned there. And along with the Antarctic Treaty, we also have one convention to protect the biological resources in the form of marine. वहाँ पे जो marine organisms है ना, उनको protect करना चाहिए. साथ के साथ, you should also protect the protocol. You should also follow the protocol and protect the environment there. For that, we also have a protocol named Protocol on Environmental Protection to the Antarctic Treaty. That means the environment that is present in the Antarctic Treaty need to also be protected. Now, apart from these three, there is another component which is not yet talked, but which is part of the Antarctic Treaty of 1959, but India did not talk in its bill. That is protection of flora and fauna. Now there is a criticism that there should have been an exclusive clause for the protection of flora and fauna. So if I ask you what are the animals that you get to see in the southern pole, are polar bears found in the southern pole or polar bears found in the northern pole, and where are penguins found? If you know the answer, please do comment in the comment section. See, generally polar bears are found in the north pole. Polar bears are found in the north pole, and in the southern pole you will find penguins. So polar bears are not found in the south pole. Penguins are the animals which you will get to see in the Antarctica, right? And they also said that this bill will be applicable to all the people of India, Indian citizens, all islands. Where exactly is this bill applicable? One, all the islands that are associated with the Antarctica, ice shelves, ice lands, ice sheets, and the extensions of the ice sheets as well, right? That means any crime you do, you come back to India and you will be punished here, and all the citizenship rights will also be given there. So this is what the bill talks about, right? And they have also set up a committee. This committee will look after the Antarctic expeditions in the Antarctica. Along with that, they are going to have a Polar and Ocean Research Center, and National Committee on Oceanic Research is also being involved here. And this committee is an expert committee based on the Ministry of Earth and Science, Environment, Earth and Science, Ministry of Science. Lastly, the committee has some functions. What are these functions which we have to look forward? Now these committee functions are nothing different from the Antarctica's, whatever the bill Antarctica Treaty has been mentioned in. Whatever the points that have been mentioned in Antarctica, same things have been given in the functional format for the committee as well, right? Now negotiations and fees and charges along with some kind of penalties have also been included. They also talked about permits किसको दे सकता है, कौन दे सकता है, right? Now any permit by the committee should always be given in written. This is what the bill says. And Indian expedition to enter and remain in Antarctica, they need permission from the government from now on. Earlier a private member research can also go and do in Antarctica, but now from India, if someone wants to do it, is the government will approve it. Now which is that approval authority? It is a committee that has been set up, right? Now if you wanted to do your research in Antarctica, you have to adhere to the Antarctica Treaty and its protocol and environment, as well as other rules and regulations. Now this is what it has been talked about. Now this is the story of Antarctica from the preliminary point of view, locational aspects, the countries which were initially involved in Antarctica, and the roles of the India, the impact on India, why do we have to go to Antarctica, and what is the relation between the monsoon and the Antarctica's ice sheet melting. These are some of the areas which we have to understand, and we should also link up with the Arctic and well as Antarctic. How is Arctic different from Antarctic, right? Now coming to the next article, our next article talks about the risking all for the love of Aravalis. So in the recent times, Aravalis has been in news for its degradation. Okay. Aravali mountains, these are the mountains which you will get to see in Rajasthan all the way from Gujarat se lekar Delhi. Now the extension of Aravalis you can see until the President's house. It is called as Delhi Ridge. Okay. The Rashtrapati Bhavan and the Parliament which you get to see, that is also part of your Aravali. That is where your Aravali ends. It starts from Gujarat and all the way to Delhi as well. The highest peak of Aravalis is Guru Shikhar. Guru Shikhar is the highest peak. Now in this Guru Shikhar which is found in Mount Abu Bay, it is placed, right? So now this article talks that the Aravalis, there is a problem with the definition of Aravali, number one, and number two, because of this problem in the definition, there has been intense mining that has been taking place, right? The Aravalis are being degraded from the Haryana side, from the Delhi side, and from the Rajasthan side as well. From all three sides, the degradation of Haryana has been taking. Now what are the reasons, what is the impact, how are these Aravalis can be protected, if at all, are there any conventions that can protect this? Now what is the significance of this Aravalis, we have to look forward into, right? Before that, firstly, let us quickly look into the locational aspects of the Aravali. Number one, if these are your Aravalis, west of Aravali is your desert, ठीक है, ये आपका desert है. Now east of Aravali, this is your semi-arid areas. right? And if at all there is any rainfall because of the monsoons, they always travel, the monsoon winds will travel east of the Aravalis, right, east of the Aravalis. Now as this desert, if you start to degrade this Aravalis from the desert side, Rajasthan side, slowly it is said that the desert area can slowly pass on to the semi-arid areas as well. Now this kind of process where a semi-arid area where the crops, cultivation of crops can be done using the irrigational methods, over a period of time if you start to increase this desert area into the semi-arid areas, because of which the crops cannot be grown in these areas, then that particular process is called as desertification. It is called as desertification, right? Now desertification is a process where a cultivable area is converted into a non-cultivable area because of climatic change factors or because of any anthropogenic factors, right? The current kind of degradation that is happening in Aravalis is primarily because of the degradation of Aravali forests in the name of mining, right? And Aravalis are the oldest mountains that are present on the India. They are the oldest fold mountains. These are older than your young fold mountains. These are also older than your Western Ghats. These are also older than your Eastern Ghats. So very old mountain system, right? Now this old mountain system, it has been talked that there is a problem in the definition. Because of this problem, the mining is taking place, right? Firstly, let us try to see how exactly is Aravalis are defined. See, the Ministry of Forestry and Climate Change says that Aravalis should be identified according to the 1992 notification. Back in 1992, all the states that are being part of this Aravalis, they have been notified, saying that, which says all गैर मुमकिन पहाड़, मतलब कुछ ऐसी uncultivable area हो, ठीक है? Number one, uncultivable area, or else whether it is foothills or pastures. अगर उस hills में if there is a pasture, if there is a foothill, or if there is a cultivable grasslands which are present in these foothills, or rocky areas where there are present between two different hills, right? All these areas should be part of Aravalis. Now Aravali protection management करके एक पहले बातें चल रहा था back in 1992 that it is time for us to protect this Aravalis. Now over a period of time in the year 2005, the concept of NCR came in, National Capital Region. When this National Capital Region has come into picture, there are certain rights that have been given to this NCR as well. In this NCR, there is another concept that came in, that is natural conservation zones. इस natural conservation zones को protect करने के लिए जितने भी Aravali region which is part of NCR region, that should be converted into natural conservation zones. This is what they have talked about. But over a period of time, the development of Delhi, Haryana, which in the name of Gurgaon, Faridabad, as well as other satellite towns, they started to grow in a very fast manner since 2005. So when the growth is rampant or growth happened at a faster rate, the Aravalis also started to degrade at a faster rate. Why? See here, you have to understand that next to Aravalis is the city of Delhi, right? Here you have Haryana. So Haryana, Delhi and some parts of Uttar Pradesh have been converted into a area of National Capital Region. And it is said that in the National Capital Region, you should have few zones which are part of naturally conservation zones. उनको कहा गया था NCZ. Now these NCZs, National Conservation Zones, it is very important to protect these NCZs as well. क्यों? क्योंकि Aravalis are part, and this protection of Aravalis is also very important for the development of that area. So over a period of time, as the city started to grow, in either sides, slowly the Aravalis have also been started to mine. They started mining. Mining what? They started to mine the sand, they started to mine the minerals, and they also started to mine the kankar, right? Now these kankar is used for the utilization of the development of the city, especially the NCR region. Slowly the degradation of the Aravalis have been increased. When the degradation of Aravali increased, then came into picture the new problems. Now what are these problems? Number one, Aravalis, especially in the regions of Gurugram, number one. Number two, Haryana part. These are the areas where the population of leopards is highest. Okay, the population of leopards is very, very high. Now, if at all you started to degrade these areas, the leopards that are living, they started to enter into the national capital region. By this, it is understood that the man-animal conflict has increased, right? Man-animal conflict increased. Now came another issue. The other issue is that suppose these are your Aravalis. Okay, Aravalis are mountains, right? Aravalis, east to this is your national capital region, and west to this, somewhere here you will have Haryana and you also have Rajasthan, right? So, over a period, the hills that are present between these areas have been mined off. Okay, these areas have been mined off, right? And the hills that are present in these areas are also mined. So, the gap between Aravalis has been increased. Earlier, in the Haryana and Punjab, if at all, any pollution activities that were there, they are used to be blocked by the Aravalis. Pollution means stubble burning. Agar yahan pe hua, imagine there is a stubble burning. In this stubble burning, if at all, the pollution will always used to come little later. It used to be struck by the mountains of Aravalis. Now there is a new gap that has been created. Because of this gap, the pollution started to come into Delhi with ease. The pollution started to come into Delhi with very ease. Now in winters, the pollution rates has been increased. One, the pollution is from the mining areas. Two, the pollution is also from the stubble burning activities which are taking place in Haryana and Punjab as well, right? Firstly, it has led to the man-animal conflict, and secondly, it has also increased the pollution concentration in NCR region, right? Nextly, if you see that, see, this is a brief picture how the mining has been active in the Aravali regions. Over the last 4 decades, there has been so much of excavations that have taken place in Aravali, right? And if you see, this is your Gurgaon. ये आपको ये पिक्चर्स की इमेज है, ये गुड़गांव है, ये रेवाड़ी, फरीदाबाद एंड पलवल. All these areas also come. There are part of Aravalis which are present in these areas also. And the court, there is a court order which have come up in the 2011 saying that the mining should be stopped immediately. The mining should be stopped immediately, and there should be a declaration of zones called natural conservation zones, and let's start to protect it. But in spite of the Supreme Court judgment, the protection of the Aravalis has not taken place at the rate it has to taken. It has to be taken. So over a period of time, what happened is that the implementational policies have been delayed, and slowly in the year 2012 and in the 2018 also, there have been constructions that have been even constructed in the deep Aravali mountains as well, right? So the failure of the national conservation zones and also the degradation of the Aravalis of this sort, pollution that also started to coming into Delhi through a place called Digrota, right? Digrota gap, a gap has been created. Through this gap, the pollution can easily travel through and come into Delhi. That is called as Digrota gap. ये जो Digrota gap है, because of this, the pollution is now entering into Gurgaon, Delhi and Pataudi, all areas, right? Clear? So in spite of this, if you see, Aravalis have the largest number of population with respect to leopards. When this gap has been created, one, pollution also brought in. Now the man-animal conflict also increased in the Gurgaon region. Every year, at least 5 to 6 incidences of leopards attacking human beings have been found in that region, right? It is because of this gap. Now what is gap? Gap is nothing but when there are series of hills, if you cut down few hills, there is a gap that will be created, and that gap will lead to the movement of global atmospheric winds can easily pass through that if they are heavy, right? And let us see the composition of Aravalis and how exactly Aravalis are being impacted. See, west of Aravalis, this is all desert, right? As this is a desert, now these are your Aravalis. They are actually acting as a barrier for the winds that are coming from the desert. Slowly, if these Aravalis are degraded, the desert can easily move towards the east. Move towards the east in the sense that over a period of time they will also convert into deserts. Degradation ज़्यादा होगा. Now that desert thing, desert components can also come into your interior of the Delhi area also. Now this kind of process is called desertification, and it is very important to make a treaty, or it is very important to bring in some laws to protect these kind of areas. It is because India has signed a treaty called United Nations Combatification on Desert, UNCCD, United Nations Convention on Combatification of Desert. It is a legally binding agreement, and this legally binding agreement, it says that we should stop the desert area in increasing. We should stop to convert a fertile area into a desert, right? At least we should stop. So for those desertification process to be stopped, it is Aravalis which are acting as a barrier between a desert and a semi-arid area. So if you start to degrade this, slowly the desert will start to move towards the east as well, right? इसमें क्यों, why is it being degraded? Number one, it is because of illegal mining, lack of research and degradation which is present in the Aravali regions, and there is not much of a clear definition that is being there. For Haryana, the definition of Aravali is different. For Delhi, the definition of Aravali is different, and the definition of Gujarat is different. So when the definitions which do not include areas between two hills where there are rocks, that means rocks can be mined, right? If at all there is no grass in those areas, if that area can be mined. Now if you include the definitions as 1992 definition, which also has that rocks are also part, the gap between two hills is also part of Aravalis, in that case that area cannot be mined. Now using these loopholes, the states that are present in this vicinity, they started to utilize these loopholes and start to mine these areas, right? Slowly in the recent times this issue has come into picture, and now let us wait and see what kind of protection laws will be acting on these, right? This is it for today, and we'll be coming up with more relevant articles for the UPSC and other examinations. Thank you and stay connected, right? And before this, lastly, I would like to tell you that we have an initiative in the name of Seize the Mains in our website, which is mentioned here. And for today's question is, what are the possible reasons for increasing level of desertification in India? Discuss the short term and long term solutions to tackle the problem. You can go to the website which is mentioned here, and you can try to attempt writing the answer. See guys, it is very much important to self-evaluate yourself. As a student, many of you know the concepts, but you fail to write those concepts. When you are in a perfect position to write this kind of topics, now that is when it is said that you are ready for the examination, right? So please make the best utilization of this opportunity and stay connected. We'll see you in the next week. Thank you.